Hello, everybody. My name is Captain Tony Young, and from Forever Young Charter Company, and this is the Tom Rowland Podcast.
Tony, how are you, man?
I am doing awesome, Tom. How have you been?
I'm great. I can't wait to hear about this race that you just ran.
Yeah, it was pretty special.
The Keys 100. That's amazing. 100 miles. I've never run 100 miles. I ran 30 miles one time, which I thought was a lot, but 100 miles. That's incredible. It's not your first, right?
Yeah, this was my first time doing 100.
Okay.
So I did the Keys 50 2 years ago, and we did our podcast. We did a podcast together a bit ago. We talked a little bit about preparing for that race. Mm-hmm. So this was like a step up from there. So wow. This is my first time running 100 miles.
So what makes you want to run 100 miles?
Well, the funny story about it was we both do a lot of hunting and stuff. So I drew an elk tag a couple years ago for Wyoming, and we don't have any elevation gain here in the Florida Keys. So I thought I'm just going to start doing some running after my day of work, and hopefully that'll help me get me ready for my Wyoming hunt. And I started to really enjoy the runs, did a marathon, and then learned about this Keys Ultra race. So I signed up for that 50 that we talked about. And at the awards ceremony, there was a couple of the 100-mile finishers. I didn't even know like the 100 was possible for people that didn't professionally try to pursue this. But there was a guy, he came in so broken and battered after running 100 miles that as soon as he hit the finish line, he just collapsed, and they pulled him off on a little stretcher, got him some water and everything. I'm like, that looks awesome. I want to do that. So
most other people looked at it and thought, oh my gosh, that looks terrible. You thought it looked awesome.
It looked like a good time.
So for people that may not know, you also own Forever Young Charters, which is one of the fastest growing charter companies in the Florida Keys. How many boats? Tell us about Forever Young and what it takes to run that charter company.
Forever Young's been a huge passion project company, and it's been amazing. And just over 8 years in business now. And it started out with me and a close friend, and it just expanded from there. So I'm running 3 boats full time, about to launch the 4th boat into the fleet now. And this last year expanded down to Key West, specializing in trips to the dry Tortugas. And then this coming year, we'll be opening up in Key Largo. So we'll have 3 locations, 4 boats, and doing a wide range from dive instruction to Tortuga snorkeling trips, stuff like that. But the main bulk of it is charter fishing and charter spearfishing.
And so your responsibility is not only running the charter service, but also guiding daily.
Correct. Right? Yeah.
How many days of guiding are you doing a year, you think?
As many as I can. Yeah. I'm well up in probably the 280 day range where I'm actually on the boat. Nothing's changed from day one. I love it as much as I have from the very beginning, but the days are pretty long. So, you know what it takes to be a charter fisherman, and, to be on the water. It's early days, and then trying to organize bookings for 4 different boats and a full team, and scheduling everybody and taking care of invoices and stuff. My days are pretty long.
So you're doing all of that and then finding time to train for 100-mile race. What does that look like?
Yes. Well, it's not as glamorous as you would think. I start my day. I usually wake up between 3 and 4 in the morning, and I do some emails in the morning and just, kind of get caught up on that busy work. But it's a nice quiet time. I really enjoy that morning period where people are still, resting, doing their thing. And then if I'm fishing, I'm usually at the dock between 4:30, 5 in the morning, and then, get a full day of fishing in, come home, close my day out by like 5:30, and then I run and return phone calls, and then usually sit down and have dinner between 8:30, 9 o'clock at night, and hit the pillow by 10 o'clock. So that's kind of what a day of Tony Young looks like.
Wow.
But
when did you decide or commit to the 100 race?
So I finished the 50 2 years ago, and to my surprise, it was extremely good. Well, it was amazing cross training for being a captain. and it worked out really well. Like it just worked well with me. So I decided like the next year I'm doing the 100. I got to do the 100. And with all the expansions of Forever Young and everything, it was kind of hard to organize the time. And I didn't sign up for the race. And I was heading to the marina to set up for a charter. And I saw all the early morning, like 5, 6 a.m. starts. Like these runners were leaving Key Largo to run to Key West, and I wasn't with them. So I immediately signed up for the next year. I'm like, I'm getting this done. I've never been so let down on myself before for not signing up for that race. But that's where the drive started. So really, like right after my 50, I decided like this is something I need to do.
So you just mentioned that it was really great cross training and being a captain. Explain that real quick.
Well, I think, being on the water for you and everybody listening to this, like you guys love fishing and diving and stuff. So like the days are pretty long and they're hard. And for a captain, it's not that we don't start when the customers show up. We start, for me, when I'm fishing, I'm there usually an hour and a half before the departure time. And then sometimes, depending on how many fish we catch, it might be 2 to 3 hours of teardown, but take really good care of the boat, get everything ready for the next day. So you're in the sun all day and it is tough work. So coming off the water and then going for an extra run, I just started calling it heat training. So I'd wait till after work in the heat of the day where the humidity is hot, sun's up high, and it just made everything so much easier. It made it easier to wake up in the morning, you hit the pillow exhausted beyond belief, but I don't know, just fishing and diving just became so much easier when you're adding on that 5 to 15 mile run every night,
Wow. Yeah, I do. When I was fishing the most was when I was running the most also. And I felt the same way, except that one thing that, especially in the hottest months, I was on the skiff, no shade at all. So you're out there just in the sun all day long. And then I would come home because we were tarpon fishing like you, getting up very, very early and then leaving the dock before sunrise. It was hard for me to run. It's hard for me to get out. I would have gotten up at like 2 something in the 2.
Yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm not going to do it before. I'm going to have to do it after. And I was training for marathons at the time. But what I found is that I could not step into the house and feel that air conditioning.
No, you can't. You gotta keep moving.
Outside, despite the scorpions and everything else, I had to keep my shoes either in the truck with me, a pair of shorts and shoes. That's all you really need. And but if I stepped inside, it was over. I mean,
Yeah.
the conditioning after being on the water all day long. Do you suffer with that too? It sounds like you're going and returning phone calls and stuff. Do you get in the AC before you go running?
It depends on the day. I usually come inside the house and I'll say hi to the dog and I'll sit down and do a few things. But yeah, I try to get going as much as possible. So I usually on the way home because I live in Key Largo, so it's like sometimes a half hour to an hour drive. So I get a lot of those calls done on the way home. But I gotta stop, get a Cuban coffee, and just kind of get like an afternoon coffee boost, and then that usually helps me knock out a couple miles after work.
Yeah, a couple miles. But tell me about the difference between training for a 50 and then training for 100. Did you put in a lot more? Did you like read books or look at a training program, or how did you go from being successful at the 50 to being successful at 100?
So probably not the best answer on this, but for the 50, I actually looked up like an 8-month training program and I followed it religiously, and I did multiple 20, 30 mile runs. I was putting in 70 hours minimum a week running, or 70 miles a week running, like really hammering down on that. And then the 100 mile was a little different because I've just been having so much fun building Forever Young and having so much fun fishing and spearfishing that I'm still running a lot, but I wasn't doing the long runs. And I really felt that towards the end of the 100 mile race. But the longest run that I had actually put in before the 100 mile ultra was 20 miles, and it was like a week before the race. So I was doing mileage, but they weren't very long. So,
Wow.
yeah.
So had you read some different things about, I mean, there is kind of a, when I was running my marathons, I was running about the same as you, 65 to 70 miles a week was kind of the standard plan. I ran with the Hal Higdon plan, which is super
Yep.
old school for anybody that's listening today. There are a lot of other plans that are much lower in mileage, and there is definitely a kind of a theory that you can run lower mileage and be successful at these longer races, which you obviously proved. What's your thought on that? Did you feel better on the 100, or do you think that if you were to
Yeah.
do it over again, would you have done anything differently?
Well, for the record, putting it out there, I am absolutely addicted to ultra running. So this is definitely not the last. I'm already looking at like the 200s, the 250 races. I'm all in. But the 50-mile ultra, like Alyssa was my crew chief, my fiance, and it was just her and I. We learned so much. Tom, we did so many things wrong during the 50. Like I'm gonna pack venison burgers and like all this good, and during the race, like my body just didn't want any of it. So it was like I was fighting nutrition and working through the heat and doing all these things. So like I think just doing the 100, like having that 50 behind, I kind of learned a little bit what my body needs nutrition wise, hydration wise, and really as far as like the sleeping goes, where I'm used to getting low sleep just from day-to-day work. But we learned so, and then doing the 100 now, learned so much and did so many things that we can improve on. So it makes me more excited to do the next race.
Well, let's
But
talk about what you did the first time versus this time, and what you were actually eating this time. So you had a lot of food the first time, venison burgers, other things. You ended up not eating those. What did you eat on the first 50?
one of the main mistakes I did is I've done quite a few marathons, and those go packs or those gel packs are always nice. So I ordered a fair amount of those, like good ones that are decent for you, and made the mistake. I didn't realize they were caffeinated ones. So,
Oh.
so I
Some of
was
those
taking
have
these.
a lot of caffeine in them.
Yeah. So I like the first like 15 miles of my 50, I was having real bad heart rate issues, and I'm like, man, what is going on? So my body was not happy with the gel packs, and then each gel pack had 75 milligrams of caffeine. So just overlooked that. Once we got that sorted out, what we did a lot in the 50 was I was running a fairly fast pace, I thought, for that mileage, and then I would take like 5 to 10 minute breaks in the truck to like cool down and fuel, like get water and stuff. So the tactic on the 100 that we switched to is I never stopped for the entire duration of the race. It just kept going. And if I felt tired, then I would walk like a half mile, but I would never like stop at the truck for more than a minute or two. So the idea was, if anything that I'm going to eat, really the food was Encrustables were actually really good. Really good pickles. Pickle juice is a huge thing for me. Some electrolyte, like sodium electrolyte additives for water. I ate a ton of blueberries and stuff like that, bananas, apples, just stuff that had a lot of moisture and that was just like easy to kind of get down. So the idea was just to stay more hydrated, keep moving, not take breaks on the truck, and just kind of keep going was the main tactic for my 100.
Wow. And so you were mentioning your heart rate. What kind of device are you wearing to monitor your heart rate?
Well, I have a Garmin, they're like newer Garmin MK2 dive watch, so you can do the running and stuff, but I need to get a newer watch or like a running specific Garmin because this one went dead on the 100 mile.
Oh, it did.
So I had to ran far enough to where it go dead, and then I had to charge it and stuff. But I just tried to kind of ignore all that and just enjoy the run, and just kind of listen to my body. And if my body needed something, then I would just try to fuel it that way. Versus in the 50, I was trying to go by the program and like, this is what people do. And during the 100, it was just like, when I was feeling good, I really took off. If I was feeling depleted, I might speed walk half mile and eat a banana and just fuel up and then get going from there. So just try to listen to my body a bit more.
And do you have any idea how many calories you burned on this 100?
I have no idea, except that like it's been a week now, and I can't eat enough food throughout the day. I'm still trying to get caught up.
Like what did you eat when you were finished? with the race? Did you have something that you were craving or that you felt like you needed?
Burger. Just
Burger.
craving something heavy. Yeah, we went to the Hogfish Bar and Grill, got some spicy shrimp and got a nice burger and fries, and just like not something that normally eat too often, but it felt amazing.
Isn't that funny how like after I've never run 100 miles, but I've done some things that require a lot of energy, and after that, like you're saying, for a week, you just cannot seem to eat enough food.
Yeah, it's your body needs it, and I jumped kind of right back in. I took one rest day and then jumped right back into life. So maybe take an extra day after the next one. So
right,
yeah.
Life, are you training and fishing and spearfishing and running when you jump back in, just a little bit lighter?
Yeah, so I finished the race at, I think it was not like just like around 9 o'clock. I finished the race. So that day and then the next day, kind of recovered and got caught up on emails and work and stuff in my office. And then went mahi fishing the next day, and then started running and did another run like the day after.
How was that?
I tried to wait as long. Tom, I'm like addicted to it. I love it so much. It was a great run. Yeah, it was a fun run. My dad actually joined me for a mile of it.
How many miles did you go on your first run back?
5.5.
5.5.
So yeah, just over 5 miles.
Was everything feeling good?
Yeah, actually, very surprised with how well I've never experienced pain that I didn't know that was possible during the last 4 miles of the race. Mile 96, I really was hurt bad, but it was more muscle and fatigue. But like after that, like my whole, like everything came back. I broke my foot during the 50 and ran through that, and then I had some shin splints, that kind of hurt, and my right knee was a little jacked up after that race. But during the 100, surprisingly, everything held out really well.
So what do you attribute that to? It sounds like you trained less for the 100 than you did for the 50, but you were able to do it much better. I mean, have you thought about that? Like, is that anything that you're kind of putting 2 and 2 together, especially as you start to look at longer races? Like you showed me a 250 already that you're considering.
Yeah.
What are you thinking about your training now?
Well, I think one of the biggest things that I've realized is that during the 50, I'm definitely don't know a lot about this. I'm very new to everything and don't consider myself the greatest runner, but I sure work hard at it. But during the 50, I was just trying to like listen to all these podcasts and just go by the book of like what, professional ultra runners are doing. And I just had in my head this idea of like what the race had to look like. Whereas during the 100, Alyssa and I just, we were up for over a day together just running, and I just tried to listen to my body more, and that really helped out a lot. And just trying to enjoy the run. Like there was a moment on the 7-mile bridge run, it's kind of a tougher stretch of the race, just because you already got at that point 50 miles, and then you got a 7-mile stretch. But I caught it right at the sunset. And I watched this guy hook up a tarpon. You would have loved it. He hooked up a tarpon like right at sunset, and I saw him jump in. I heard the drag going, and there were so many moments in the race like that, Tom, where like I just would kind of actually stop for like 30 seconds and just appreciate what I was doing. And I think my head was just in a better place, and everything just moved a lot better. Like I know from you and all the workouts that you do and the runs, that like our mindset is more powerful than any physical shape that we could ever be in. It's all more of a mental game, if anything. So that I was just in a better place for it, I think.
Yeah. So, I mean, my opinion on the mindset is exactly as yours. I think that your mind is so much stronger than your body, and like the whole, if you read David Goggins' book or anything like that, he says that, when you feel like you're tapped out, you're really only about 40% there. And if you can overcome that in your head, you can continue on. And it sounds like maybe, I don't know, did you get to that point, or did you have a point where you had to kind of fight some demons and overcome and move on?
Yeah, it's funny you mention that, because Alyssa just got me for my birthday like a plaque for my office where I can hang all my running medals and bibs on, and it says the 40-60 rule, which is something that David Goggin talks about. And I was hoping that, it's funny because like I think that we all, like, if you're into this type of stuff, you actually try to find that 40 per 40-60, and I was hoping to find that on my 100-mile. And yeah, I battled a lot of stuff. I lost control of my bladder at one point, which was interesting. And I had a stretch through the night where I didn't really realize it, but I ran like a 3-mile distance and didn't even remember any of it. So I must have like zoned out, like half asleep. But I felt pretty solid until mile 95, and that I had like 0.8 to get to the aid station, like the last aid where Alyssa was. And it was really, really tough, like really bad. And that was like the first moment I'm like, there's no way that I'm going to not finish this race. But it was on the table at that point. Like walking was almost impossible. And then when I got to the aid station, I just had to take a second to kind of collect myself. So I took I was a bit of a mess, and I'll never forget this. But this goes to like the testament of how strong you have to be with your crew. It's just Alyssa and I. So she's as tired as me. She's been up for, at this point, where I was running for 24, 25 hours at this point, and we've been up for over 30 hours together. So, I mean, we're pretty exhausted, and I needed to change my shorts and just kind of get a mental reset. And I started blacking out while I was trying to get my shorts out and collapsing. She got me to a bush, and I was, I was vomiting. There was nothing there. And it was really tough, but like walking was not an option. Have you ever heard that where people say like, I can't walk, but I can run?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. Like you could keep moving, like running but walking is not working.
Walking was not an option. I made some mistakes with my chafing. I had made some mistakes there. Chafing was rough, and walking anything was not an option. Alyssa tried to get me into the truck to let me cool down and just have a reset. I'm like, if I get into that truck, we're not getting out. Like that's. So for the first time, for 96 miles at that point, I never listened to any music. I just ran and just enjoyed the race and just stayed in my head. But that was like the point. I'm like, all right, I put some David Goggins on. I listened to a section of one of his books that you talked about that I know. And it was basically just David Goggins just yelling at me in my earbuds, like, all the good stuff. And I'll never forget it. Like something happened inside, and I could barely get one foot after the other. And I'm like, at this pace, it's going to take me 4 or 5 hours to get to the finish. And I'm like, my only option to finish this thing is I just got to get my feet moving and start running. And it hurt so bad that tears were just pouring down my face, and I was just screaming to get started. And I was having these muscle spasms. I'd get like a couple strides of a run, and then I'd have a muscle spasm go from my leg up through my back, and my whole body would lock up. And I was a mess, but I managed to hold like a 13.5-mile pace through the end. And something happened there. And I think I finally broke through to that other 60%. And when I finished, I was like, that was like the first time in my life where I realized maybe I've only been living at 40% potential.
What is that for you?
I mean, I think we sell ourselves short of what we're capable of. And it really, I want to explore it more. I don't know at this point, but that's when I started learning more about the longer races, and just like, there's more that I can do with fishing. There's more that I can do with diving. I think, like when you free dive, like when we went out, there's that point where you want to take a breath, and, now it's like wanting to get back into working past some of those barriers and, focusing on my mental state, when I'm diving or fishing. And yeah, it was a pretty big moment for me.
I would imagine that that's a really big moment for you, and I bet that sticks with you for a long time. About, my experience in these type of things is that you learn a few lessons that really, really, they're like a permanent marker on the rest of your life, and that's one for you. Like maybe you've only been living at 40%, and it's hard to believe because you've accomplished so much, and you're doing. I mean, you're living at 180% of what a regular person does. But, you know,
I appreciate that.
there's the possibility that you're not even anywhere near your potential.
Yeah, and I'm excited to explore it for sure. So
It's interesting with that though. In order to get there, like it's not, so now you've been to this place where you're calling the 40, you know, maybe you're only at 40%. In order to kind of learn more about that, you have to get there again, which is
right.
95 miles in. But next time it won't be 95 miles in because you've already been there. So next time you have to push further.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's what's addicting about this type of stuff, and also just why I think that it is incredibly challenging to continue to learn about this stuff, because you have the desire to learn about it, but you have to actually put yourself through it again to get back to that same mental place. But that it's like a moving goalpost, because you'll be in better shape next time. You'll have this experience that you can draw from. So you'll be able to go further before you get to that same place again, which is,
I sure hope so.
yeah.
Well, yeah. You know,
I'm sure that you will. So when you take that lesson or even just that realization back into your regular life, what does it do for you even just a week out?
well, I think just right now, like the day to day of everything is like we have good days and bad days. Even with fishing, you know, there's days where it's just tough. Like you go and trying to catch bait and it's tough. And I think the big mindset is just like every day is different, and you can just you just get through the day and you just overcome everything and you just make the best out of it. You just let the day develop. And that's one of the things that I really have learned through running is like some days it's so hard to get that first mile in when you're exhausted. But like yesterday I was tired and I'm like, I want to make a coffee. And I'm like, you know what? Don't need any more caffeine. I'm just going to put my shoes on. I'm gonna go run a couple miles. And then I came home, I was able to knock out some work and, you know, cook dinner, have a nice night. But I think that's like one of the biggest takes homes, that when you go through so much pain and you go through so much hardship, it makes all the obstacles of life just that much not easier to get through, but it's just like something happens to be like, oh, that ain't nothing, you know, compared to what I've done. And it's like another tool in the box for you to pull out when you need it. And
that's the cookie jar. Goggins.
What's that?
That's the cookie jar that Goggins,
yeah, the cookie jar. Yep.
He
Yep.
talks about it as a cookie jar, like all of those experiences, all of those things that you've overcome. He calls it the cookie jar, where he has all those memories in that place. So when it gets really tough, he just goes back to the cookie jar. He reaches in and he says, "Oh, well, I ran the Keys 100. I overcame being unable to walk at mile 95. Right. So if I can do that, I can definitely do this. Right.
100%.
And so he has more and more and more, as you do, as we all, anyone who's interested in these type of endurance events, you start to collect those cookies and keep them in the cookie jar.
Right. And it just slowly makes you a better person. And I had a lot of good moments, I think, with Christ on the run, you know, with you know, just like some very special moments that, like, it's just those undeniably true moments during the run. And I also like what's that?
Tell me about one.
Well, my grandfather was a really big runner. He did a lot of 5, 10Ks. And I remember as a kid, I'm from Minnesota, which you know, but not everybody might know. But we have a family cabin up in Walker, Minnesota, and his bedroom, he's just littered with a bunch of these medals. Every time you finish a race, you get a medal. Doesn't matter if it's 5K or 100-mile or 250-mile, whatever, you get a cool medal. So he's got dozens of these things. And at like mile 60, I was running, and you know, you're getting to be it's like 60 or 70. I was pretty tired, but I was still fully alert. And I felt this runner to my right just about to pass me. And I look around, there's nobody there. And I just go back to running, and I feel this person. I look over, and it's like, I try not to get emotional, Tom, but like my grandfather was right next to me, clear as day.
Wow.
I mean, he was right next to me running. And when he passed away a few years ago, I really started doing some small runs just to try to feel closer to him. And it's been working, for sure. But this was a moment for me where it's like clear as day. He was right there, and we didn't say nothing. He just looked at me. I looked at him, and it lasted for maybe 5 or 8 seconds, and then he was gone. And I'm like, just keep me going, Gramps.
So was he wearing running when you, in your recollection of him what was he wearing? Was he wearing like running gear that you had
It was
seen
like
him before?
it was like one of the last outfits that I saw him in, which was like sweatpants. It's like sweatpants, one of his eel pout peel out fishing shirts from up in Walker, and then I can't remember, shoes or something. But yeah, it was a spectacular moment. Like, and just too, there's like a lot of times when stuff like this, I mean, just anything in life, it doesn't have to be a 100-mile race. It could be, it could just be a tough time that you're going through, and you say a prayer out, and it's a true prayer. Like, you're not asking for anything, but you're praying from your heart, and he listens, he finds you, and it might not be in the way you expect it, but it's like I was exhausted, and I said a prayer, like, just try to keep me safe on this run. And then, a few moments later, I saw my first key deer. I've lived here for a long time. I saw my first key deer, and it was like a mental reset for me at like 3 a.m, and just little stuff like that. But
super cool.
Yeah.
So what about Alyssa as your crew chief? This seems to be, I just had this guy on, Enrique Zapata. He set the world record for pull-ups in 12 hours, 7,100 pull-ups in 12 hours.
Yeah, incredible.
It is incredible. But one of the things he talked about were who he chose to have around him and why. Because he basically, he's done this a lot. He almost got rhabdo, like his body starts to break down. There's all kinds of things. It's not a pretty sight, just like what you're talking about. At mile 95, it's not a pretty sight. There are a lot of people that would just say, oh, just please stop, and then how about Alyssa? What was the, like, I don't know exactly how to ask. Like, obviously it was a good choice because you're successful as a team, right?
Yes. Yep.
She's concerned about you. She cares about you. She doesn't want you to hurt yourself. Like, there's a balance there. How did she do with that balance?
Alyssa's amazing. Like, we've been together for over 19 years now as a couple since high school, and we've been through a lot of hard things together. And when we were looking at putting together a crew for the team, it was, it ended up just being her and I for the race. And she really did a nice job. Like, just like all of our food prepared, like everything was organized. I had different water bottles. We had different water bottles with this thing in it, like different stuff to like help me throughout the race. And and I would text her, voice message her exactly what I needed. She'd have everything ready. But most importantly, like, all these things that I've always been into and she's always been into, some way we kind of grow together in them. So when she loves fishing as much as I do, and spearfishing, I definitely enjoy a lot more, but she likes being on the boat just as much as I like being in the water. And we've rock climbed together, we snowboard together, and she runs too. So she's, I did the Big Pecker Challenge down in Key West. She did the Little Pecker Challenge, which is a super fun Keysy race. We've done the bridge runs together. She's always at the marathons. But like, the thing with her is we just had so much fun during the race, and we broke through some new barriers as a couple that I didn't even think, after 19 years together, you don't think you can explore new avenues, but we found out so much more about ourselves through these 2 ultras that we didn't even know. But it was one of the things that really stuck out of having her, is I didn't want her to see me weak. And I think that's, as men, we just don't want our significant other to see us weak. So no matter how bad I was feeling, like even coming into that last aid station, I had been speed walking, wobbling for a little bit. But when I saw her, I'm like, oh man, I got to start running. Because if she sees me shutting down, like I can't have her shut down. So I picked myself up, started running a little bit, and about collapsed in her arms, but she kept me going. She pushed me the whole way, and she had a smile on her face the entire time.
That's awesome.
So
That's awesome. So as you prepare for what's next, she's definitely going to be your choice crew chief.
of course, yeah.
Wonderful.
We did decide that 100 miles, just her was it was a lot on her for sure. I mean, just like, because she's moving every couple miles to get the truck, move the truck. There's no aids on the 100-mile Keys 100, so the only aid is what she provides. So she'd have to meet me like every 3 miles, 5 miles, 7 miles, whatever it was. But I think on the next one, it would be good to have a couple more people for sure.
So what do you think you've identified a couple that you're interested in? What does the next one look like? Do you think?
I can't find one right now. It's so tough because like I've been like down the ultra running rabbit hole. Like that's the only thing. Like every morning on the way to the marina, it's like ultra running podcast, and I'm like, oh, I could do this better. I learned about this. So the tough thing is just like with our bookings for charters, it's really hard to dial in, a block of time for a race. So there's the Superior 100 up in Minnesota that looks incredible, Tom. It's the Superior Hiking Trail, Lake Superior, just south of Canada. So that's next year in May. But what's tough is a lot of these races you have to get invited into, or there's a lottery. That's one I want to do. The Badwater 135. I'm sure you've heard of that race. Yeah. It's arguably the hardest.
For a while, they canceled it for a while because it was so tough.
Yeah, it's
maybe they're bringing it back. I mean, that's the one that I've heard about that is like the most extreme thing I've ever heard of, is that it gets too hot to run on the pavement, so you have to run on the white lines.
Yeah. There's a famous picture of cast iron pan frying an egg next to a runner running on the white line. So, but that
is to train for that.
Yeah, and it was, what was fun is I was listening to another podcast, and they were talking. It was an ultra running one, and they're talking about the Badwater 135 and the Keys 100 being similar in heat difficulty, just because of the areas that they're in, which was cool. But I'm trying the Badwater. I have to put in 3 ultras within 3 years, and then I think the last ultra has to be within 6 months of the race to qualify. So I don't know. I'm just trying to find another ultra that's within the schedule, because we're coming up on hunting season too. So got to be careful about that.
Yeah, sure. Is there a time of the year that would work best for your charter business? For race?
Yeah, the spring months would be really nice, which is when we get a lot of races down here in the Keys too, in Florida. So, but yeah, the Louisville 100 is a good one that I've been looking at, and but yeah, I'll find another race. But the Corcadona 250, that's got my eye for I put that down as a 3-year goal. So I got to start getting to it.
How do you you said you put down your a 3-year goal? Do you have like a board, or like how do you keep track of your goals, like especially ones that are that far out, 3 years, 5 years?
Yeah, I got a nice vision board. I'm sure you kind of have a similar one, or or a spreadsheet, or we all kind of have our thing. But I would say, like, anybody listening that's trying to better themselves, it's so important to have goals for like a year, 5 years. So I got 3 years, 5-year, 10-year goals, and then each goal has a breakdown of like what it's going to take, pretty much down to the month, to accomplish that. And like, so I put that 250 race on my 3-year goal, and and what that breaks down to is coming down to at least a couple 100 miles a year, 100-mile ultras, and then like what it takes to train per month. But yeah, it's really lit a fire under me. I'm like, when I see your posts and everything, it's like you see a lot of runners and how they're cross training with weights. And that's something, like, I used to go to the gym quite a bit, like years ago, but I haven't done that in a while. So I'm excited to start lifting again and start better performing myself that way.
There are some guys out there right now that are putting out some incredible content. That Nick Bear,
he's of course, yeah.
And Truett Haynes, Cameron Haynes' son. I'm sure you're aware of him. He is the 24-hour pull-up record. He's done the most pull-ups anybody has ever done. He did 10,001 in 24 hours.
Yeah, he's incredible.
Doing that, but he's running these races in
Yeah.
jeans.
Yeah, I know.
Jeans, and running like a 2:46 marathon.
Yeah.
Like but then he can also run 100 miles. I just saw his post. I guess him and Nick Bear were in a 100-mile race, I guess this last weekend. And I saw his thing. That's one of the reasons why I asked you if you knew how many calories you burned, because I guess he had a watch or something that was keeping track of his, and it said something like 14,000. He burned 14,000 calories, which is, I'm sure you burned the same amount. And then he, what was the other thing? It was 14,000 calories. Oh, but it gave us pace, and he was averaging about a 14-minute pace for 100 miles.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
What was yours?
Mine was just over 15 minutes, like 15:30. You know what's, yeah, and it really, like, my pace really, I was averaging 11 to 12-minute mile, and that includes any stops, like, so if I stop for a minute to, like, grab water or put some ice under my hat or something, that adds that time. And I held that, I think, through like mile 60, and then I dropped down, and then it averages out to like 15 something. But what's amazing is like how hard I had to work to finish. And then there was a guy that finished this race in 14 hours. 14. And he ran 100 miles in the Florida Keys in 14 hours.
So what kind of pace is that?
Well, I guess like, yeah.
Calculator I can find.
Yeah. So incredible pace. And then he set the Keys record, which was in I think 2016 or so, a little bit, or maybe a little later, but he did it in just over 13 hours was his record.
13 hours. So, wow, this is the Strava one's not the right one.
And the females do an incredible job. And yeah,
my nephew just ran the Lima, Peru marathon, and he's quite a runner. 2:46 is what he finished that marathon in.
Yeah, it's incredible.
Yeah,
there was a female last year. She did the Keys 100, or 2 years ago, she did it in 17 hours. And I mean, at that, like, you're running with your hair on fire at that point. And it was hot.
So what about your training? Like, if you're running a 15-minute mile. So in order to, I just did this race calculator here, 14-hour time for 100 miles is an 8:24 mile for 100 miles.
Yeah, incredible.
That's what most people run a 5K in.
Yeah, it's an incredible time.
8:24. So when you're training and you're first of all, you're training to finish the 100. And then do you have any kind of time in mind that you're thinking, I would like to finish in this amount of time, or are you just training to finish?
I had 3 goals for the 100 mile for the Keys 100. My first goal was to obviously finish the race, and then my second goal was to finish not stopping and run across the finish line. I wanted to have a strong finish where I was running through the whole race and not like walking 20 miles of it or something, and then my third goal was to finish it in just under 24 hours, like in 24 hours. And I didn't make the last goal. But I was able to run the whole race, not stop, and, learned a lot. But I'm really excited for the next one, so I can try to get it in sub 24, if not even better than that. So
sub 24. Let's see what this thing says. 20. That would be 23. Let's say 23:50 for 100 miles. Is going to be.
What app is that, Tom, you're using?
I just found it. It's on active.com.
Oh, cool.
And the running pace calculator, you put in the time. So let's say 23 hours, 50 minutes, and then you put in the distance, 100 miles, and then calculate, and it says 16.06 would be in order to run a 26 hour. Oh, that's 26 hour. Let me see. 3 hour, 50-second would be. And the thing about this is that if you do it wrong, it messes up. It makes you do the whole thing over again. So
Yeah.
miles for 23 hours and 50 minutes. That's going to be a 14-minute, 18-second mile for.
That was close. That was close.
15-minute. That's true at Haynes territory right there. That's serious, Tommy.
Well, it depends on the race too. So like one of the things about the race here in the Keys is that it's flat on pavement with it's a very easy run outside the heat. And what was cool was I met people from all over the country came to run this race, and it was really neat to see that. But a lot of people enjoyed the track because it was so flat. So like the terrain was easy, but the heat was the hard part. So a lot of people dropped out just from overheating. There was a number of people that go through the hospital and stuff like that, but for overheating. But I don't know what a lot of the other ultras, but a lot of them have massive elevation gains too. And that's one of the things that I look forward to some of the other races, just seeing different country, but then also adding, like, you're not just running 100 miles, you might have 14,000 feet of elevation gain over the course of that, ups and downs, which is pretty impressive to work through.
At Leadville, I think, like, seriously.
Yeah, the Leadville race looks amazing.
That one. Did you run into our mutual friend Harley Hunt from How to Boating?
I did not, but I did watch. I did watch his show or his YouTube, which was very special, and I love that he ran the race for Lucy's foundation, and I really hope it helps get some education, especially on being Memorial Day weekend just recently.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, he did well in his race as well, and like you, didn't seem to. I mean, I don't know. He just trained, but not excessively. Like, I mean, I called him and I was like, "Are you running right now?" He's like, "Yeah." His phone and running while I was like, "Well, you got to train. You have to."
Oh,
train.
yeah.
One of the things I wanted to ask you about your training is that as you're training for 100 miles and you're training to, maybe let's talk about the next race. Even you want to run 14-minute and change for 100 miles. What does your training pace look like? Are you running long and slow? Are you running faster than that? Are you going back to conventional marathon training, or do you do any speed work in there? What does it look like to train for a 100-mile race and have a target pace in mind?
So you hear a lot about like that zone 2 workout, like that zone 2, and that's what I try to stay in. So
explain to what that is. That's a heart rate.
Yeah.
Zone 1, zone 2, 3.
Yeah. So there's like different zones of your heart rate, and zone 2 is like considered a zone that you can have your heart rate during a workout while holding a conversation. So like my first run after the race, I actually had a friend and client call with a question. So I talked to him for like 40 minutes on the phone while I was running. So that's like, he's like, "Are you running right now?" I'm like, "Yeah, Jim." So if Jim's listening to this, I'm talking about you. But yeah, the idea is on a zone 2 is like, you can kind of just stay in that indefinitely as long as you keep your body, fueled. So I just, for me, and after a normal day, that's like a 9.5 to a 10.5 minute mile is a zone 2. So it doesn't matter if I run a mile or like 15, I can kind of just maintain that speed. So that's where when I dialed it back for the first like 60 miles, I was able to hold that about like 11.5 minutes. So I dialed it back a little bit and did really well until my legs started to get wore out.
But do you think a longer race or the next race that you would start slower?
I think I just stayed the same. I just need to put in more miles before the next race. Mm-hmm. The one thing that when we were talking about working on the water and being a captain and how that's helped out with this race is like the heat really didn't affect me that much. And that's one thing that, like, it was never the heat. It was never overheating. It was just like taking care of my legs and just keeping the acid out of my legs. And that was like the main problem I faced on the race. It wasn't, most runners were running into like heat exhaustion or, even worse than that. But luckily I didn't have too much of that.
Well, I would imagine if you're coming from a place where you're not used to running in the heat, and certainly not running in the heat for that time, the electrolytes would become a real problem. How did you monitor your electrolytes? Could you just feel when you needed something, or were you on a program every 5 miles you're hitting a supplement or something?
I gotta make sure I say this right. Glutamine, is that how you say it? It's like
Glutamine.
Yeah, it's like, yep. So I started taking that supplement to help out with, to help keep water and keep like your blood flowing through the body. So I would take that every 4 hours. But I was taking potassium, magnesium, and sodium, just like in the packets that you can put in your water bottles. So I did notice that I tried to listen to, like, if I wasn't going to the bathroom or I wasn't like flushing fluids, then I would try to get more sodium and try to get more water. But I did overhydrate a little bit at one point, and I was flushing fluids like crazy. And that's where I kind of had like the bladder issue. So I just tried to listen to the body more, but I did learn after the fact, like how much you can make this a science. Like you can actually learn. I mean, people listening to this are probably like, of course, Tony, you should have known that doing this race. But you can weigh yourself before a 1 hour run, and then do a 1 hour run, drink no water, weigh yourself again, and then you get a dial in on how much you're burning, how much you're sweating, and then that'll dictate how much water you need to take in. And then from there, you can do a salt test to figure out how much sodium you're losing. So for the next race, I want to have more of a science behind it, so I'm not just like winging it, where you're actually like replenishing properly. But
Yeah. I mean that when I did the Go Ruck selection and the Seal Fit deal, Seal Fit Kokoro, the electrolytes were really that was the deciding factor. It wasn't nutrition. It was really the electrolytes. And when you get so low in electrolytes and you have any, it is like a supercharge. I'm sure you felt that when you got the electrolytes, which is potassium, magnesium, and sodium. If you can get those right, you feel amazing. And when they're really, really low, especially in sodium, you feel, I mean, you cannot move. It's the worst feeling, but it just takes just a second. If you drink some, it goes into your bloodstream so fast and you feel better so fast. It's really amazing.
Yeah.
It's incredible.
Yeah. It is important. And even like, that's like the number one thing for free diving that I always tell people, like, how can I prepare? How can I get ready for my trip? And what I tell them on the phone is, try to do some ear clearing in the pool. If you can, that's great. But the biggest thing is just staying hydrated, and then having, not drinking alcohol the night before you're diving or a few nights before, hydration, and then just a lot of electrolytes. Like that's the biggest thing that people usually face with us on a charter is that their legs, they'll cramp up and they'll get headaches just from free diving. And it's, you don't realize how much you're sweating or how much you're working in the water because you're covered in water, but you lose a lot. So yeah, we always have like, coconut water on the boat for people. That stuff really helps out a lot.
Wow. So what kind of advice would you give somebody that is either a charter fisherman that wants to, well, let's start there. A charter fisherman that might find some inspiration here and wants to give something like this a try?
Well, to be honest, like I think if you're a charter fisherman or a weekend fisherman or whatever, like I grew up in Minnesota and moved to the Keys about 10 years ago and really wanted to create a life down here around fishing. And charter fishing is extremely competitive, and there's a lot of companies and the best way I think to like better yourself is just to put in the work. And by me running and doing some cross training, it just made the actual work easier so that I could focus more on fishing and diving. Like I think that's a big thing for a lot of people is like, you might have the fishing dialed into the T, the best that you are, but if the heat's getting to you, or you're wanting to get back to the dock an hour later to clean up the fish so you can get back in the AC earlier. Like that's the stuff that, that doesn't really faze me. So I have no problem. Like even when we have like a banner day of fishing, like I'll still push to go catch yellowtails after we got the boat full of mahi and tuna, just to like fill out the day even more, and I can't stress enough like how much running in the heat has helped me be a better captain and be a better diver and just hold a better head on the boat. And like if other people are tired and you're tired on the boat, like that just doesn't work well. So if your captain's energetic and excited and running circles and jumping up and down when you catch a nice fish or shoot a big fish, and it just makes the day so much easier.
Yeah,
but
sure. What about advice for somebody that has a busy schedule? I don't know how you could have a busier schedule than you, and wants to do one. Well, I mean, it could be a marathon. It doesn't have to be a 100-mile race. It could be a half marathon or a marathon or something, but those require a lot of training. What kind of advice would you give somebody to kind of find the time? Because I don't like the term balance, because there is no balance really.
There's no balance.
So I don't really like that, but I do like finding time, and there is time available for all of us in the day. What kind of advice would you give somebody that's busy that wants to find the time to be able to train for something like this?
Well, what's worked well for me is that if you might have to write it down, but there's 24 hours in the day. Unfortunately, I have tried, Tom, and you're not going to make more than 24. So there's 24 hours in the day, and you got to block out your sleep on what you need, and you might have to make some hard decisions to limit sleep or whatever. But if you're a person that needs 6 hours of sleep, well, you got 18 hours in your day. What time of that day is work? So minus out your work. If you work an 8-hour day, now you're down to 10 hours. So what are you doing with your 10 hours? And usually what I've noticed when I've talked to people about this is that when they actually label it down, they realize they waste a lot of time in the day. And I mean, at the end of it, it's like, even I think you and I too, like there's times where maybe you're scrolling on social, or or you decide your alarm goes off and you snooze 20 minutes or something. Well, that's 20 minutes that you just lost. So I always say there's always time in the day, and you got to prioritize it. So you can do, like, one of the things that a lot of people like look at is like pillars. I like that analogy of pillars, like different pillars in your life. So you could have 3 or 5 pillars, but things that you don't deter from in the day that you have to complete. And like one of my pillars is like a minimum of 5 hours of sleep. So 5 hours of sleep is try to get right at 5 hours of sleep. And then I try to dedicate for sure an hour and a half of just quiet time with Alyssa, like where there's no distractions. So you minus that out in your day, and then you build around that. So then you put another pillar in your day, and you just make sure you get those done, and then fill everything out around that. So if you decide that, like, hey, I want to do a marathon, or I want to run a mile a day, you just make that mile. That mile could only be it might only be 10 minutes of your day. You just have to get started. So you just make it a pillar, just make it something, then it becomes habit. Once it's habit, then it's just in your program every day.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I call those non-negotiables, like the things that you're going to accomplish that no matter what. Like those are your pillars. Those are what I call non-negotiables in my day. And those are, or other people just call them your priorities.
Yeah. Like, you just have to get it done.
Do it. Yeah, that's super cool. And then you mentioned how being a charter fisherman may have helped you in some way on this race. I was wondering about what about spearfishing, and like, was there any, like, I know that as a spearfisherman to your level, you've done a lot of breathing exercises. You focus on your breathing a lot. Are you bringing any of that into the running at all?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. So like when I go through a breathe up for free diving, or even like if someone's doing a deeper tank dive with us, males, we tend, or just in general, we tend to breathe with our chest. We fill our chest up. But that's really like what we want to do, is we want to be using our diaphragm to keep that air low in the bottom portion of our lungs, where we can absorb oxygen better and we get more out of each breath. So the more you do that, like with free diving, and spearfishing particularly, you don't always have time to get like a full breathe up to dive down and shoot a fish. Like like if a wahoo's swimming by, you have to stay in a constant state of ready to dive, ready to, you're breathing up the entire dive while you're waiting. And when you see the fish come through, it's quick breath and go and execute. So like during the entire race, there was never there was never a cardio. There was never like my cardio system was never strained or tired or anything like that. And I think it's just making sure that you listen to like your body and knowing that taking slow, deep breaths constantly and just understanding that that's how you're going to maximize the oxygen retention and expelling CO2. The fast breathing is not going to help. So I think it's just like the habit that's been developed. It really transfers well into the running.
What about nasal breathing? You breathe.
What was that?
Nasal breathing, like out of your nose.
Yes. I try to do that as much as possible. So on my runs, like I just run loops around the park. Pretty much always breathe out of my nose.
Mm-hmm. Interesting. Yeah.
There's
super cool.
There's some good books on that, like breath, or like there's a lot of really good books on that. Like Born to Run is one of the greatest books I've ever read. I highly recommend it to anybody. It was a wonderful book to read. So
when you read Born to Run and then you're running your 100-mile race, how does your footwear compare to the Born to Run footwear?
Well, it's a little bit different. I would say I have been, Alyssa's like, you need to buy a new pair of shoes. I'm like, no. In the book, they said you got to have broken in shoes, run barefoot, all that stuff. But my shoes, I have had these shoes for 3 years, and they've got, I've did my 50-mile ultra, all my other runs in them, and I've ran in the rain in them. So they're beaten down pretty good. But it does, like, the padded shoes are, like, a lot of people say, I can't run, I got a bad knee, or it hurts my legs, or it hurts my back. Well, it's probably because you got these big padded shoes that are, compensating for a bad form. And that was one of the takeaways, is that I'm running these shoes that are extremely worn out. They're flattened out. They're all scuffed up. I mean, there's not much left to them. But I was back on the water fishing 2 days after the race. And I think it's because if you don't have that cushion to help you, you have to have a good form, in order to move forward. Otherwise, it's just going to hurt too much, and your body doesn't want to hurt. Our bodies are pretty lazy. We don't want to hurt ourselves unless, But
interesting. That book, it basically advocated barefoot running. And the Tarahumara Indians in Mexico, they basically run in I mean, some of the things that they were describing were like, it's just like a tire, and they would just lash it to their foot. Like they would cut a piece out of the tire and just lash it to their foot. I mean, just to keep from cutting their feet. Like no cushion whatsoever. Just either some sort of a sandal or like these things that are lashed to your feet to make sure that you're not cutting your feet. Other than that, they believe in no padding whatsoever.
Yeah, I got at the 7 Mile Bridge, the Keys Bridge run this year, or last year. I got the guy that was in an age group above me. He got first place, and he barefoot ran the whole thing.
Wow.
Yeah, and he barefoot ran on this. Yeah, and then he hit his toe on, like how bridges have like those connection points. Yes. Well, he hit that, and he like totally ripped his foot up pretty bad. And the whole leg was all bloody and everything. But yeah, he ran through the whole time, no problem.
Seems like it's hot that time of the year. I mean, that's April. That's pretty hot on the pavement. I mean, he must be really running barefoot all the time on the pavement, just to avoid burning your feet like that.
Yeah, I haven't gotten that hardcore yet, but
I don't know that barefoot running is for me. I wore those Vibram 5-toe things for a little while, but I kept tearing my calf. And when I got away from those and back into, like a flat running shoe, I stopped carrying my calf. But also I did this stretching of my calves that has really helped there. I haven't torn in a while, but I mean, it was a repetitive injury. One calf would go and then the other calf would go, and it really messed me up. But I'm over it now, I think. So all good. So you're back on the water, and you have you're about to expand your business to Key Largo. How's the boat project going with the renovation of the boat? Is that the one that's going into Key Largo?
Yeah, that's the plan. It's coming together really well, and just got new motors put on, and then it's at the weld. It's getting welded on a dive ladder right now, and doing a new second station up top. So decided not to do controls up top, but we're putting in a nice little second station so kids can go up there and stuff like that. You know, if we're at anchored up or something, and then from there it goes for the rest of the rewire work and little bit of U-deck. Ryan's going to do a little bit of U-deck on it, make it look real nice, and then she'll be ready for the fleet. So
nice.
Yeah, I can't wait.
That's going. Where are you located in Key West?
We're at the Perry Hotel and Marina, which is beautiful. Yep, Stock Island. So yep, the guys are running to the Tortugas right now.
Oh, good. And then you're in Islamorada. You're right behind the Square Grouper.
Yep.
And that is, what's the marina called?
Safe Harbor Islamorada.
Okay, so Safe Harbor. Then in Key Largo, where will you be?
We're still working that out. I'm trying to get right by Key Largo Fisheries.
Oh, nice.
Which would be really special, because when I first moved down there, I spent a lot of time at the Core Restoration Foundation. They have their one of their office buildings there, and remember going to the market there, the fisheries market.
Yeah.
And back when it was a little hole in the wall thing, and they've expanded. They got a bar now, do live music there, so it'd be a really fun full circle to have a boat there.
Well, good luck. And so if people want to either spearfish with you, you do both spearfishing and regular fishing charters, where do they go? foreveryoung.com?
Yep, you can visit diveyoung.com. So we have all the information on both locations there. You can book online. My Instagram's Captain Tony Young, and phone number's right on the website there. And I'm always looking for people to run with. So if you want to go for a run, Key Largo Park. I am the current Jacobs Aquatic leader. I've done the most laps. So if you want to come for my title, come get it.
I would think that the only person that I know that is even close to coming for your title would be Harley Hunt, and he probably doesn't even know that you run there. So Harley, go over there and see if you can. I don't know if you're going to take your title, but maybe you can have a good run with him.
Come spend some time with me.
Yeah. All right. That's great. Tony, congratulations on this last accomplishment of the Keys 100. That is truly incredible. Something I've never done, something I would like to do. And that's a great inspiration and motivation. Good job for you. And
Thank you.
It's a team effort. I do know that. And good luck on the next one.
Thank you. I appreciate it, Tom, so much.
All right, buddy. We'll talk to you soon. All right. If you want to go spearfishing, Tony Young is the man. If you want to do some sort of a joint thing, spearfishing, a little bit of spearfishing, a little bit of above water fishing, he does that too. Or just straight up above water fishing. Tony was on Saltwater Experience this year, did a great job taking us both underwater and above water. We did that, and it was fantastic. So you can check that out on waypointtv.com if you want even more of Tony. And we'll be back with another awesome guest just like Tony next week. So I'll see you then. See ya.